Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you. It's my birthday today. Thank you. My name's Hughes. When I was a child, I had a dream that I could visit every country in the world. Back in the 80s, it was impossible. There was the Iron Curtain, there were wars going on in Africa, there was civil conflict pretty much everywhere. But in the last few years, the world has become a remarkably safe place. And in 2009, on the 1st of January, I crossed the River Plate into Uruguay, and thus began the Odyssey expedition, which was my expedition to try and be the first person to visit every country in the world without flying, solo, and on a shoestring budget. I started in South America. Thank you. I started in South America, all 12 countries of South America, done very quickly, into the Caribbean, which is a bit more difficult than you'd imagine to be able to travel around on ships, but I managed to get around there. The big difficulty in the Caribbean was Cuba, not because of me, I'm British, I can go there, but Americans have problems going to Cuba from the American government. So to try and persuade someone to take me over there in a boat was very difficult, but I found someone and they took me, which is fantastic. Then I headed up through Central America, North America, over to Iceland, and down into Europe. I got an Interrail pass for 3 weeks, went to all 50 countries of Europe in just 3 weeks. That's me in Russia there, my Russian visa. That's me traveling very quickly through Sicily, that is there, down into Tunisia. Then I made it into Africa, and when I started my journey, I thought Africa was going to be a bit difficult. I'm actually on record as saying, because I self-filmed the whole journey for the National Geographic Adventure Channel, and I remember saying, Africa's going to be a bit difficult. It might take me 2 months, maybe 3. It took me the best part of a year to get to all 55 countries of Africa. This ship here, this boat is a pirogue. It's a Senegalese pirogue. It's a fishing vessel. I took one of those to get from the country of Senegal over to the country of Cape Verde, which is an island group off the west coast of Africa. It took 4 days to get there, outboard motor, 10 Senegalese fishermen with me. We arrived after 4 days, battered and torn. We had no radio, we had no contact with the outside world. If a big wave had come, it would have taken us out. And as a reward for getting to Cape Verde, we were all put in jail for 6 days because they thought we were people smugglers. I managed to escape jail, and then they impounded the boat we came on, and I was rescued by a German guy and a French guy who came across from another island to pick me up on their little sailboat and take me back to Africa. It took about 8 days to get back, just on the sail. Then I headed down through Gabon. You can see me in Gabon there, where I joined a Bwiti tribe, and headed down to Congo, where lightning struck again. I was thrown in jail, this time on suspicion of being a spy, which is brilliant because I look like James Bond, obviously. So in Congo, again, in Congo-Brazzaville, I was put in jail for 6 days again. I don't know what they have with 6 days. I think that's the biggest amount of time allowed to keep you in Africa without charge. And eventually I got out, but it was a bit of a traumatic experience. But my father was interviewed back in the UK by the BBC, and they asked him, is your son going to give up now? You know, he's been put in jail twice, and he's obviously not going to finish this journey in a year or 18 months. And he said, don't be absurd, my son's no quitter. So for my old man, I had to keep going. So I went over to Madagascar, over to those islands like Comoros, tried to get to the Seychelles, couldn't get there because the Somali pirates made it difficult. Then I headed to Sudan there. That's me in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which I actually climbed in the middle of the night, which is the most exciting thing I've possibly done in my life. And then after that, I headed over to Central Asia. So that's me in Kyrgyzstan there. There's Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the other one, Uzbekistan. That's me in Afghanistan there with my Watch Out for Men with Beards t-shirt outside of Madrasa, yeah. And then I headed into Iran. Now, when I traveled, one thing I learned very quickly is that you can't judge a country by the actions of its government. And although Iran has a pretty terrible government, the people there were beautiful. They were the most hospitable. They were the most wonderful, hospitable people you could ever hope and imagine to meet. I was on an overnight bus going from Shiraz to Khorramshahr, and a little old Persian grandmother in front of me gave her her mobile phone and said, she couldn't speak any English, she just gave it to me. And the guy on the other end said, "You're sitting behind my grandmother, and she's concerned that you won't get any breakfast in the morning when the bus gets in. So if you would like to, she'd like to take you home with her so she can cook you breakfast. Would that be acceptable?" And I was like, "Yes, okay." It's just incredible, incredible stuff. So then I headed through the Middle East, down into India, over the Himalayas. That's me on a bus in China. Great buses in China. You get a bed to yourself. There's me on the Great Wall of China there, looking a bit confused. And then I headed over to South Korea. Now, everyone asked me how I was going to get to North Korea. I got there by going into the peace hut that straddles the border between North and South in the DMZ zone, the demilitarized zone. So I only went about 2 feet into North Korea, but I went there nonetheless. Then I headed through Southeast Asia. That's me on Koh San Road in Bangkok. And headed down into Papua New Guinea. That's me in West Papua, which is part of Indonesia. And then over into Papua New Guinea proper. And there I got some really bad news. My sister in the UK had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at this point, I've been traveling for 2 years. I've been to 184 countries, and it was time for me to go home. I had to get on a flight, fly back to the UK to see my sister. And one thing she asked me is, "Graham, don't give up. Don't stop doing this because of me." And I promised her I wouldn't. At this point, I've been traveling for 2 years. I had 17 countries left to visit. It used to be 16, but a new country called South Sudan had been invented in the time that I've been traveling. So then I hit the Pacific Islands, and when people ask what are the most difficult countries to get to, it's not Somalia, it's not Afghanistan, it's not Iraq. It's actually getting to islands like Nauru, Vanuatu, places where cannibals might put you in a big pot. But I made it around and got to New Zealand. Now, New Zealand was supposed to be my final destination of the Odyssey expedition. I was supposed to start in Uruguay, make a beautiful sine curve around the world, and end up in New Zealand. But by the time I got to New Zealand, I still had 7 countries left to visit. And so I turned around and said, okay, I'm going to head back to my hometown of Liverpool in the UK, and I'm going to hit these 7 last stragglers, the final frontiers along the way. They were Nauru, Federated States of Micronesia, Palau, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Seychelles, and the aforementioned South Sudan. I managed to get around the Pacific Islands on cargo ships. The cargo ship companies were amazing. They allowed me to hitch a ride. I managed to finally get to the Seychelles after waiting in Sri Lanka for 4 months on a cruise ship. It was a Costa cruise ship. I asked them very nicely. I said, "You've had a bit of a bad year. Do you reckon you could show up some good publicity by giving me a free lift to the Seychelles?" Which they did. That's me in the crossing the equator ceremony there, putting a barrel and had my head shaved, as you can see. And then I headed back into Africa. And from Africa, I headed up from South Africa all the way to South Sudan. And on the 26th of November 2012, I finished my journey in South Sudan. It was an amazing trip. It took me 4 years, all in all. I thought it was going to take maybe 18 months. I was wrong. But one thing I learned more than anything else is that if you get all the information you know about the world, just from the media, just from the news, just from the internet, it can give you a very distorted view of the way the world really is. And it didn't matter whether I was in Bolivia or Djibouti or in West Papua, people fell over themselves to help me out and help a stranger in need, whether it was for food, accommodation, to point me in the right direction, or just talk to me while I'm sitting next to them on a coach or the train. And I've got to say, the world isn't a big, scary place. I was away for 4 years. I didn't get mugged. I didn't get beaten up. I didn't get anything stolen from me, and I didn't even get ill. So take it from a man that's been to every country in the world. If you can go and see the world, please go and see it. My name is Graham Hughes. Thank you.